All right, so last night I had the opportunity to test my ability to stand my ground. Um, and it was just a really silly little thing, but I was proud of myself anyway. So I mentioned yesterday or the day before that I had, or probably both, that I had realized a couple mornings ago that it would be beneficial for me to go ahead and let the storage unit go, right? So I've been paying on it, had a promotional deal where it's normally $97, but I was, getting it for 83. But then last month it jumped back up to 97. The promotional part of it was over. So, I was kind of trying to rack my brain and figure out what all I need to do and how I could go about getting the money. And then I finally realized it's like where I'm at now. I've been thinking the past couple weeks that it's like I really don't have a ton of stuff in the storage unit. So, I was thinking about I could like downsize, but then the other morning I was thinking maybe it's time to just let it go. So I got everything moved out of it, and part of the idea that I had the other day was I have a closet in my office that was full of my mom's stuff. And I was pretty confident if I pulled everything out of there, we would be able to find some things to get rid of, as well as put my stuff in it. So all of my stuff is condensed and together. And so that was yesterday's project, was clearing out the closet. Well, of course, it pissed my mom off because everything that was out of sight, out of mind is suddenly under her nose. But, God, there's so much. That closet's so big. I know we've talked about that over the years, and like there was the question, when they had the house built, of which room would be better for my brother versus which would be better for me. And the one he ended up, I don't know if he selected it or how he would be, how it got divvied out. But his room is smaller. Well, what was his room, what is now my office, was smaller, but the closet was huge. So then my mom was, wondering, would it be better for me to have the bigger room or the bigger closet? And, it didn't really matter. It was kind of fine. And then there was a whole lot of years where, I had a TV in my room and the Nintendo. So when she was babysitting, we used to all go gather in my room and play video games anyway. So it was fine. But I finally was like, you know what? I want my stuff together. I want to know that when it is time for me to move out for the last time, that I will be able to, make the break easily, right? And she, of course, did not like it because now that's all her stuff that needs to find a new home. And the big thing that she held on to as the issue was this cedar chest that was in there. And this thing is freaking huge. It's probably a good 4 foot long. And one of the legs is jacked up on it. And I started bringing pictures in there because that's what it had in it, was like boxes of pictures. And she was looking at it and she got real pissed, and she's like, no, she said that cedar chest needs to stay in there. I said, no, my stuff is going in there. It's like, that is my space, so I'm going to have my stuff in it, and we will find new homes for the other stuff if we even decide to keep it, right? Because there was like a whole box that had like china in it, and when I pulled it out and started looking at them, she couldn't even tell me whose it was. It's like, well, if we don't know whose it was, what's the point of having it? And I think it's probably going to be my great aunt who died several years ago. And in which case, it's not a whole lot of matched stuff anyway, so it wasn't like a fancy set or anything. And, she had a couple kids, but her kids were estranged from her, so, they were kind of more of along the lines of just get rid of it all. However, my mom is of the mind of collect it all and maybe we can find a home for it, or just store it and not do anything with it. Which is kind of what's been happening with the damn china that's been in the closet that nobody knew what it was. It was just there. I have been back in that house since 2019 when I was getting my divorce. And that's we've had other times where we've pulled everything out, because that used to be the closet where like all the sheets and extra blankets were at, or extra bedding. And there have been several occasions where we've pulled everything out to thin it out, and maybe she's gotten some new stuff somewhere along the line, so switched it out, whatever. But that doesn't really happen a whole lot, right? So every now and then she'll need something else out of it. But mainly, like my stuff, I didn't like having to dig through to find something. So in the times where we moved back and Ziva was pissed at me and peed on my bed because she was mad at me, like in those occasions, I wanted to know where my backup sheets and like mattress pad and all that stuff, where all of that stuff was. I wanted to know that. So my stuff's kind of been living in other drawers just along the way, just so I know where it's at, so if I need it in a hurry, then I can switch it. Luckily, she seems slightly less spiteful these days. However, she's still not above it. But I think largely she's calmed her ass down, Ziva. But still, I want to know where my stuff is in case something like that comes up, right? So I've had that separate, but then like it's been months anyway since I've wanted anything out of it. They have a king size bed, but it's the setup of two twin size beds put together, that kind of arrangement. So they have separate twin size sheets because they don't need the full king size sheet, because it's not a king size. I mean, it is a king size, but it's so they can adjust their own side however they want, so it's not really ideal for them to have a same set, right? So anyway, so I was pulling everything out last night. I actually pulled all the sheets and everything out the day before, but yesterday I got to the bigger stuff, and like there's this set of pipes that used to be my great grandfather's. And keeping in mind he died in 91, when I was 7. I was a little before I turned 8. And there's a container of tobacco in there with it. It's like, nobody in our house uses this shit. So it was just in the top of the closet. It's like, well, that's not really a useful spot for it. However, because I didn't want to hear her bitching about that one, I put that on the top shelf on the shelf in the laundry room, so it was out of the way, and so I didn't have to hear her bitching about things until later. Right? She saved the big bitching for the cedar chest, and she goes, okay, I'm gonna make a deal with you. And I said, no. And she was like, yes. She said, you can take everything out of that cedar chest, but it needs to stay in there. I said, no. I said, I have enough shit of my own that it is not staying in there. And if you absolutely do not want it in the closet that no longer has Gracie's toys in it, which seems really silly because that's basically, it's got like all the blankets you want while you're watching TV or whatever in that closet, right? So it seems like that would be a good place for it to be. no. She wanted to be in control of the thing. I said, I went in there, I was just like, no. I said, I want my stuff condensed and in one spot where, like, well, I mean, my two spots, my bedroom and my office. I said, beyond that thing, if you don't want it in the front closet, then I will take it to the shed. I said, but it is not staying in the closet because I want my shit in the closet, right? And I started moving stuff into the closet, and there were like 8 totes that went in there, and one of them was one of those, it's like a tote and a half of the other size ones. And I still have plenty of room to put other stuff. If it wasn't for the hardware on the shelf in the like the lowest shelf in the closet, I could probably put 3 stacks of totes. But because of the hardware, I can't. So, I'm getting creative with other things that I can put there, and it's working perfect. And I feel good because it's my stuff is now in my space, not her stuff creeping in to make me finding and accessing my stuff that much more harder, right? So it's like, I just never really had the space to realize how much that has complicated everything. Just where, my stuff wasn't able to be all in one space because her stuff was in it, right? But when I've talked on here in the past about, like the stuff with the stuff in the living room, right? So that's the room. Like, okay, since my parents are as they are, I rarely go into the family room, and I go into the kitchen to find food and to sometimes eat, but I'm not staying in there for any extended periods of time. But I had stuff in the living room, so that's the room that I focus on cleaning, right? And what I noticed was it's like I would spend all this time cleaning, and because that's where my stuff was, I would clean, and even if it was their stuff, I would deal with it in that space. And what I was noticing was when I hit the wall and couldn't go any further, inevitably, their stuff started creeping in and taking over my stuff, right? So I had the dog crates, which are now taken apart and back in the shed, so Taz better behave his ass again. I had the dog crates in there, and whenever I would skate, I would put my skate stuff out to dry on the dog crate. My skate stuff, my dog crate. And shouldn't have been a problem, except for then my dad's putting trash in there on my stuff, or his blanket, or his hoodie, or whatever else dumb shit, dirty silverware. It was like, I would do all this work, and then it's like he would be like intentionally disgusting, just because, if his stuff was in my space, I would have to deal with it, right? That's why I stopped putting anything in the kitchen, because like the kitchen table, I'm pretty sure it eats things, and it is just that simple as mom keeps ordering shit, and it doesn't have anywhere to go because we didn't really need it, so it ends up on the table, and the next thing you know, it's buried. And like today, okay, she got a Blu-ray player, a new one, to go along with the new TV, and she wanted to make sure it worked and see how well it worked, right? So since I watch movies in my office, I took it in there and set it up, and I was just using that one instead of the one that I had. Mine likes to piss me off because it's the one that will send me alerts that it's not connected to the network when I'm watching a fucking DVD. It's like, if it has a disc in the damn player, why do we need the network? We don't. So stop telling me that we're not hooked up to the network, because I don't give a shit, right? So it at least gave me a break from that. And it seems like it's doing that a little bit less since I took it back in the other room, which we had somebody come out and hang up the TV. They mounted the TV on the wall above the fireplace and set up the sound bar and the Blu-ray player, which that was the bigger thing, was just to plug the HDMI cord in, because it's one of those mounts that doesn't move a whole lot of space. You can't like pull it out and do it. It stays at the wall, but it'll tilt. So for simplicity's sake, when I took the Blu-ray player back into my office and was using it, I left the HDMI cord for it in the box and said, don't lose this, because we're going to need that cord. And here, I just didn't want to have to unhook the one that was already hooked up when I had one hooked up. So I figured I would just switch the Blu-ray player with the instead of switching the whole HDMI cord, right? So I said, don't lose it, right? So then today, the guy's there because he came back. The mount was looking like it wanted to give a little bit. So he was he came out the next day after. Okay, he came out on Tuesday to mount the TV on the wall, and the other guy that my mom requested to have come out never showed. So that guy, the one that did show, felt bad because the other guy was supposed to handle some of this stuff and never showed. So he said he would come back the next day to get the sound bar hooked up and all that. And when he came out to do the sound bar, he realized that the mount appeared to be pulling away from the wall. So obviously that's not a good thing. Don't want to take any chances on the whole TV dropping and now we're out of TV and everything else and have a big hole in the wall or whatever. So he came back today to fix that, right? But when he was there, I had the Blu-ray player over with all the rest of the stuff, and my mom, we were talking about the HDMI cord, and the guy said we should have plenty and didn't need the box that my mom had gotten because it was a 4-pack, so she got it just in case. But everything that we had that we needed to have plugged in had an HDMI cord with it. Blu-ray player had gone back in the box, or the cord for it had gone back in the box, and I said, don't lose this, because we're going to want it when the guy's here or when we go to put it back in there together, right? And of course today, when it comes around to needing it, it's like this big search because she doesn't know where it's at, because I think she got rid of the box for the Blu-ray player but had the cord out, but then where'd the cord go? And then there was the ordeal because we had to unplug the sound bar, and my dad ended up losing the remote for it in the past couple of days. I didn't know it had a remote until the guy's like, okay, well, I need the remote for it. It's like, there's a remote for that too? Great, right? So we have like this weird collection of remotes. Some of them haven't been used in God only knows how long. So we really need to figure out what's not being used and toss it, rather than just having a big massive collection. But the big thing, or another big thing that we have that's kind of a struggle, is every time we've had some sort of electronic device through the years, my dad, who, his trade was electrician, so he did that for a while, but mainly he did maintenance at the school, so it was electrical stuff, but not always. However, anytime he's come across a stray cord, he hangs on to that shit. So we don't know what we actually need. And that's been why he's saved them, is because you don't know when you might need it in the future, right? But at some point, you gotta let it go. So we have like just this weird collection of shit that just needs to be gone through and purged out. But yeah. I think there's like 2 containers in the garage that have cords, and then there's a drawer under the counter under the microwave. So it's like we have all these cords. We don't know what most of them are, but they're not useful or haven't been used in a long time. Maybe we just don't need this many, right? But that's kind of the way my family's always been, is collect it, and eventually something will happen with it, right? But as I've talked about with the whole cleaning thing, okay, so a couple years ago, or more than a couple, when I moved back, the newer shed that we had, because we had 2 sheds back then, right? We had the old junky one, which was just only suitable for like yard work stuff, and like the bottom the freaking floor was pretty much busted out, and yet that was where the lawnmower was and all sorts of all that stuff. And the new shed was bigger, but it was nicer and it was newer, so it was where everything else went to be stored, because we have this collection of shit that we don't really actually need. When I moved back, the one shed was like falling apart really bad, and it had birds and rodents living through it, and God only knows what all was in there. Probably snakes too. It was one, I would open the door, and if I could not see something that I was looking for, I wouldn't go in it. Like, I would not under any circumstances go in that shed, because it kind of freaked me out, because I didn't want to like break an ankle or whatever because I fell through the floor or whatever, or get bit by God knows what, any of those things. So since it was in such bad shape, and I was moving a bunch of shit from a house, because that's one of the joyous things that happens along the way. Move out of your parents' house and start collecting things, right? Because of course I had a situation where I needed a kitchen at one point in time, so then I have all this kitchen stuff that I don't need at my parents' house. But God forbid I look into selling any of that, because my mom has freaked out on that end, for a wedding gift. My parents, I don't know if, at least my parents got it for me. I don't know if anybody else went in on it in the family. But one of those really nice KitchenAid mixers. I think it got used like 2 or 3 times. But when I was leaving Alabama, that was something, my ex liked that more than I did, I think. And so honestly, for spite's sake, I decided, okay, there was a crock pot that had it was one of those 3-in-1 crock pot things. And I liked that. That was something I wanted, but it came from his side of the family. When it came to us splitting stuff out, I was doing this before he even knew that I was leaving, I think. I was trying to get an idea of what all I was taking and whatnot. And the big thing was, I knew my mom would be pissed if I left the KitchenAid mixer behind. So I figured the stuff that came from his family he could have, and the stuff that came from my family I would keep. And pissed him off, which was great. The one thing I didn't do with that connection that I wish I would have when I was leaving, I wish I would have found a way to get the 75-gallon aquarium that I had taken down there into my the storage truck, and turned his bathtub into a turtle tank so I could take my tank with me. But it had 4 turtles in it, and some fish, and it was like more trouble than it was worth. But really, the bigger thing was I was enough of a pushover at that point in time that I didn't want to cause unnecessary conflict. It was like 3 months after I left that I had this idea that I should have turned that damn bathtub into a turtle tank. If I would have had that thought before I left, I mean, I probably wouldn't have done it, just because I was more trying to keep the peace than anything. But also, I really wish I had. But I didn't, okay? But just like, he ended up keeping a lot of stuff that had been mine just because either I didn't have enough space in the truck or it was being used and I felt bad taking it away from the animal that it was being used for. But I really wish I would have turned his damn bathtub into a turtle tank. Because that would have been fantastic. And then he would have had to figure out that whole situation. Now, as it was, he got pissed over fucking silverware. So we had this set that we had gotten for the wedding, or as a wedding gift, and I really liked it. It was one that I had picked out. It had like these little fancy swirls and whatnot on it. And then at some point we decided we wanted some more forks, and so we got another set, and it was a smaller set, but I didn't like that set as well. But he liked it, and it was fine. It worked. When I was leaving, he sent me he left me a really shitty post-it note message, on the counter, because I had packed up the nice silverware, and what did I need it for when I was moving back in with my parents, and he had custody of his son, so they needed silverware and all this stuff. It's like, you, dude, make enough money that you can afford to go buy yourself another fucking set of silverware. So it was just one of those, that nice $36 an hour. If you can't make that buy you silverware, then there's a lot more wrong with your situation, and it comes down to you, honestly. But yeah, he left me a shitty note the day that he saw that the silverware was gone. Because it wasn't all of it. It was, he got the set that we had bought separately, and I took the other set that I had picked out from that had been on the wedding list, their wedding gift thing. So yeah. But anyway, I don't know, when my mom started griping at me last night, I was actually really proud of myself that I was like, no, we're not doing that way. We're not just leaving your cedar chest in my closet because you don't want to come up with another spot for it. I said, then get rid of it. And she's like, no, we can't do that. I think it was like my great-grandma's or something. I was like, well, then find a new home for it, or it's going to the shed, because I don't want it in my space. I have my own cedar chest that I think it came from my dad's parents, and I ended up with it, and I like it, and it's kind of like a purpley color, like not immensely purple, but it's got like a purple hue. And I kind of like it. It used to have a cushion on the top of it, but that kind of crumbled and disintegrated, so it's got like this line of where it had been glued down. So one day I might fix that as well. However, it's not a priority at this point in time. But that's it. I have my own cedar chest, right? So what I'm figuring I'm going to do with that, and I have a nightstand that now needs a new place to go, because my bedroom set that I have has 2 nightstands with it, and I'm using one, but I don't need the other one, right? Because the other one, the bed is shoved against the wall. Well, it's shoved against the mattress, against the wall. But what I figure I'm going to do is have the cedar chest and the nightstand in the office, because like that nightstand, I think it's got like paint, clothes, and then running stuff, and I'm not wearing my short shorts for running anytime soon because it's fucking cold. Like right now it's 33 degrees, but it feels a lot colder than that. So it's just one of those things. We're not worried about that stuff right now. So right. So yeah. So it'll probably just go in the office. So there again, my stuff in my space. I will find a way to make it work. There's a chance it could theoretically go in the closet, in the bedroom. But I figured it'd probably be more useful if I had it a little easier to access. Because God only knows when you need paint clothes. Especially when that's like one of my hobbies. And I also use those for hair dye. So when it's time to do this mess. I usually just break out the paint clothes because then they're already ruined. They're like work clothes from my just under a decade in mental health or behavioral care. The proper way to say that. Anyway. So that was my little fun thing today. What happened with this whole closet cleaning deal was one of the things that I found had a TV in it, right? It was the TV, it was one of those Sony internet TVs, and I had left Alabama with it. It was one that my ex had when I met him, but then when we got like moved to Alabama and everything, we upgraded, right? So it ended up just kind of being in storage. So when I left, I needed a TV, so I took it. And it was the smaller of the two that he had. So it was like not that big of a deal. But there again, because I was all worried about keeping the peace and, actively allowed myself to get screwed over across the board just for the sake of keeping the peace and all that crap. I took the smaller one, right? Even though he had a big TV in the living room, didn't need the bigger TV in the bedroom. But whatever. It just, it was just easier, so I just took that one. However, since it is, okay, when I first came back from Alabama, I needed a TV, and so I used it for a little while, right? And then my brother and sister-in-law upgraded one of their TVs and asked me if I wanted that one. And I've gotten a couple of TV upgrades from them. And so that one went in the closet. Well, so when I'm unpacking things from the closet, and it's like, this is my ex's TV, that needs to go. Right? And I have a jewelry box that I feel the same way about because I don't know, I'm assuming he probably got it for his first ex before she was an ex. But it was one of those things that got left behind when she left. So he used to make jokes that he inherited it from the divorce. I ended up with it because he didn't need it. What's he going to do with the big ass jewelry box? At one point, I thought about giving it to my mom. But then I also made the connection of she gets a lot of free shit off of me and I need the money. So how about we just stop asking her or allowing her to get in the way of what we're trying to sell and purge? So it's for sale. And that's the other thing is, since it was in his possession before I took possession of it, I don't want it. We're trying to get rid of all things that point back to that existence, right? So every now and then I'll have somebody that's interested in it, but nobody's really been interested enough, or the one that was the most interested didn't want to come like an hour and a half to pick it up, so fell through. But anyway, TV. So I posted the TV for sale, and I posted it for $30. It's a 23.5 inch. And God, I had like 20 people contact me about it, and most of them just said, is this still available? Now I understand that sometimes you accidentally hit the button and then it'll send the message automatically, but that's still kind of annoying. So So yeah, so oh, sorry, I got distracted by a message my aunt said. Looks like my cousin doesn't want to have to deal with the bird drama for her kid, so that's fair. So anyway, so I have the TV posted, and the person that seemed the most interested said he didn't trust his truck to make the drive out because he thinks the back end's getting ready to go out on him, and he asked if he could give me extra money to have me bring it out to him. I got nothing against that. I have no problem working with people, right? So long as it seems like a legit thing, and I feel like I'm generally pretty good at picking up whether somebody's actually interested in the thing or not. Now, of course, that's come through times of having people kind of try to push further than necessary or whatever, and just like those damn Christian CDs, right? When it came to getting rid of those, it's like I dreaded posting them because, of course, you know the type of people that are going to be interested in Christian music, Christians, and just like that enough, or that right there was enough for me to dread the whole thing. And especially when we sorry, my aunt sent me another message. It's like my brain, it gets distracted, and then now I lost where I'm at. But like the CDs, I knew it was going to be a pain in the ass. I dreaded it, and it was exactly that. And now the question is, did I bring those types of people that were going to be a pain in the ass about the thing because I already knew it was going to go a certain way? And I feel like that's one of those things where it's just kind of like yes and no. I feel like the bigger part of the types of people that would be interested in those things are automatically inclined to put you through the bullshit so they can get some kind of extra special deal because Jesus. Yeah. Like one guy was wanting me to take pictures of the backs of several of the CDs so he could figure out who was in the lineup musician-wise. It's like, fucking look it up online. And he was asking me to do all these things, and he only wanted these ones, but then I needed to ship them to him, and blah blah blah. I said, you do realize, I said, just the amount of effort you are asking me to exert in this whole process. We're not looking at $35 for the CDs anymore. I said, because this is a whole lot of extra shit that you are asking me to do. And of course, he wasn't interested in them. He was expecting, because he didn't want the whole, 80 CDs or whatever that I had for sale, and he only wanted, 30. I was supposed to give him a better deal on those. Not taking into consideration all the hoops he's asking me to jump through to give him this information. And then I'm supposed to ship them and pay for shipping? No. It's like, you just annoyed me to death on the whole thing. And he said, oh, well, I'm not interested then. And I was like, then I'm pitching this shit in the trash because I'm tired of dealing with you people. Which I did say the thing about chucking them in the trash. However, I didn't. I just donated them elsewhere. But I was like, anyway. So anyway, the TV, there was one person that kept asking me about it, and he wanted to give me more money to bring it to him. I had no problem with that. So I went on a little field trip today. I took the dogs with me. I wasn't so sure he wasn't going to fall, or it wasn't going to fall through. But luckily, because there were a couple times he didn't respond, even though I could tell he saw the message, but then he didn't respond for a while. And it's like, are you really interested? But actually, I get downtown to where to his address, and then I park in front of his house, and I said I've arrived. He's asking me about all this, if I have any cell phones for sale or anything like that. It's like, might be able to come up with something on that end. But when I got over there and he came out, he was so excited about this damn TV. And he said that he just got out of prison and he hasn't had access to a whole lot of this technology, the advances that there have been, and he's really excited for it. And if I could find any cell phones, he would, was all about it. And he was just thrilled to death with this TV. But it was kind of funny because he pulls the money out and he starts counting it, and he's got a 20, and then he's got several 5s, and then he's got a bunch of 1s. It's like, and then he hands me this little container. What it reminded me of is like one of the travel Q-tip containers, because it wasn't very big. I don't think that's what it was, because the lid stayed down a little bit better. But she's still sending me messages, sorry. But it's coming back to me, hold on. Honestly, I appreciated it because I could tell it was like he was trying to come up with the money, right? So he had like all these the different bills and everything, but then he had this container that he had that said $5.50 because he said $5.50 for change. So it was like he was scrounging and trying to figure out what all he had and where he could dig it up from. It's like, I can appreciate that, because there's been a few times when I've been like, I had like something that was like $2 and some change that was threatening to put my account in the negative. So I was like pulling it together, trying to take in that amount to the bank, and then I actually had to go in and talk to him at the bank with my little Ziploc baggie full of change. Whatever. It's like, I've actually apologized to them that way before, because it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, this is lame, but this is what I have. And it's usually like I have a piggy bank and a hippo bank. And just as I've had loose change along the way, I'll throw them in there. So every now and then I'll go through like this span of time where I'm like pulling everything out to see if I can, or to see how much I have and what I can put together. Spent a lot of it, so I don't have near as much as I used to, but there's still a little bit. But yeah, just like, because I know what it's like to be excited about wanting something and then, trying to collect the money. It just kind of made me laugh. And he was just so excited about it. But then, and I think it ended up being like, okay, so he paid $30 for the TV, but then it was like, I think he said basically $19.50. Because I said, for $20 I'll drive it to you, and he was like, I might be able to come up with that. And he said, I have 15, I might be able to make it work. So then he hands me this container of change that's got like $5.50 in it. So I think it ended up being like $49.50. However, I didn't actually count the change. So what happened then was I got really excited not really excited. Okay, so I'm driving back home, and I'm in a good mood because, I had this encounter with this dude, and he's so excited about everything. It's like, I can appreciate, it's like just his energy, like how excited he was, right? And as I'm driving along, I end up at this stoplight, and there's this homeless guy facing the median, and he's got a sign, but I don't know that he he might have had the sign switched or flipped around, because that's what it looked like it was flipped 4444. It flipped around to me because I couldn't tell what it said, but I might have just had like something really light and just kind of wrote it on it and didn't take into account that it's, so freaking dim by the time I got over there that I didn't see anything on a sign. However, I had stuck the change thing in the door, and he's walking slowly and kind of looking at me, and Taz starts barking, and it's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So I didn't even count the guy's change, like how much he actually gave me. But I went ahead and gave this dude the change in the container that he had handed to me. And it's like, you know what? Okay. It's like, I feel like doing this, and even though, I get not having a whole lot. I got my thing I got 2 late months of payments on this thing that I did a pay in 6, and I got 2 late fees on it. But the aggravating thing is I couldn't figure out how to just make a partial payment. Of course, I haven't really looked at it because I didn't have the money available. However, the money that I just got, I got to use to get bird food first, because the birds are living on wild bird seed, and that's not great for them. So tomorrow we got to go to Greenfield because my family is doing, my dad's side of the family is doing a Thanksgiving thing. So we'll be in that town anyway, so we're just gonna hit PetSmart on the way and get some bird food. And then I will figure out what I can put on a payment from there. But yeah, it's like, I just feel like the way things were coming together, I feel better about everything that's been going on. And I was kind of proud of myself for, standing up for myself last night. And, of course, I've had a few things come up today that we're talking about, like how now is this sort of space, the end of 2025, where you're basically being asked to shed the old layers of yourself and to leave them behind because they cannot come into 2026 with you. So standing up to my mom when she's trying to keep all her shit in my closet just because she doesn't want to deal with it. I feel really good now that I got all my shit in my closet. And it's not all there. I still got my cedar chest is still in the living room and some other odds and ends. Books are all back on the bookcases. My puzzles went back up on the top of my bookcase, and the box spring it needed a place to go, so it's behind my bookcase. So that's kind of where I have a ton of puzzles, man. I have 45, and some of them I have more than that, because there are some of them that have 4 to 6 in them, or at least 4. The Thomas Kincaid Disney ones have 4 in them each. It's not Lisa Frank, but it looks kind of that way with the colors. I wanted to say that one's got 12. But yeah, so I got a lot of puzzles. And yes, I could theoretically purge those. I am going to purge some, but not a ton of them, because that's kind of been one of those things where it's a means of meditation at times. When I need the space to get my, to have something where I can have my eyes and my hands being busy doing something with, finding the puzzle pieces, putting certain colors together and all that stuff. It's kind of, and it took me a while to realize this, but it's that essentially is a means of meditation for me, because I'm able to do this thing, my brain kind of wanders elsewhere because my hands and my eyes are busy on something that, that I have to focus on. Right. So kind of the equivalent of, when I'm skating and processing things that way, except for it's just more fine-tuned or whatever. Anyway, we're at 50 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and figure out what these people keep sending me messages about, and yeah, go finish my movie. I started watching this movie Black Friday. I thought I had watched it before. I don't think I did, because I'm not remembering any of it. I think I ended up just having it for a while and then taking it back. But I decided, since, yesterday was Black Friday, then might as well watch this movie. And Thanksgiving, I watched Thanksgiving yesterday again. That one I definitely did watch. But Black Friday I've been watching today, and I paused it so I could make this little run. And it still paused, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm gonna go finish my movie. Anyway, 15 minutes in. I'm gonna shut up now. As always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.